There's nothing worse than buying a new game, booting it up, hopping into your first gunfight, and getting 1 FPS. Slow load times, crashes, screen tearing, God, the list goes on. How many times have you visited graphic settings just to turn everything down to low? I've been there, fellas, but not anymore. Thanks to our partner, StarForge, powered by Intel Core's 14th Gen processors that deliver high performance and efficiency, thanks to a groundbreaking new performance hybrid design. This includes the Intel Core i9 processor, Intel Core i7 processor, and the Intel Core i5 processor, all offered within the StarForge product lineup. StarForge PCs breaks through performance barriers that are set by modern games, allowing you to enjoy everything at the highest performance possible. Each StarForge PC is hand-built and tested right here in the US. And whatever your budget, StarForge has a PC just for you, with financing options and a 2-year parts and labor warranty. There's even tons of customization options with different plate lines and custom case designs, so if you really want to add that extra flair, you can select a PC that's truly your own. I've been using StarForge for over a year now. Let me tell you guys, during the day 1 raid, I was beyond happy my PC wasn't causing me problems. And that's the peace of mind you get with StarForge. So if you're looking to upgrade your gaming experience today, down below we have a link to StarForge's website where you can pick up that perfect PC now. Without a doubt, the Final Shape has brought us some very interesting weapons. But one of the most used weapons during contest mode for Salvation's Edge was this new strand rocket-assisted sidearm called the Call. Matter of fact, if you go to LightGG, it is the #1 sidearm and overall the #1 weapon this expansion. Now, I know most of you already know how good this weapon is, but today we're going to be going over why this weapon is so good. Now, if you're looking how to get this weapon, it's pretty easy. Just simply play the Final Shape campaign and you'll get it pretty early on. Then after completing the campaign, you can focus this weapon at the Ghost Vendor. We did an entire video, guys, going over the Pelhard weapons, how to rank up, the different versions of Overthrow. If you're looking for that guide, feel free to check it out. Now let's go over the perks available on the Call. In column 3, we have Subsistence, Strategist, Lead from Gold, Slice, Beacon Rounds, Demolitionist, and Stats for All. In our 4th column, we have One for All, Desperate Measures, Adrenaline Junkie, Vorpal Weapon, Golden Tricorn, Multi-Kill Clip, and Hatchling. Now, as you can see here, guys, we've got some loaded perks on this weapon. You really cannot go wrong with many of these options. Let's start with column 3, though. The top option for me is 100% going to be Lead from Gold. It reads, picking up heavy ammo also grants ammo to this weapon. Now, this grants 25% of your max special ammo reserves on each heavy ammo pickup, and the enhanced version cranks this up to 35%, so even more ammo. Now, this perk was my top pick for Indebted Kindness. Fortunately, we could never land Indebted Kindness with that role alongside Bolt Shot, but here, the Call is craftable, and enhanced Lead from Gold is even better. Now, maybe you have a way of supplying yourself ammo and you don't need Lead from Gold. Well, if that's the case, then I would definitely look at some other perks. You've got Slice, where casting your class ability allows this weapon to sever targets on hit for a brief duration, up to a maximum number of targets. Essentially, after using your class ability, this allows your next 5 hits to apply Sever for 8 seconds. Now, in PvE, Sever would decrease the enemy's outgoing damage by 40%. Now, it's not as much inside of PvP, only being 15%, but this is a great perk for in-game level content. Like, we were literally relying on Sever during contest mode to stay alive as I was applying it with my Frenzy Blade melee on the second encounter. Sever is really good. Now, as for the enhanced version of Slice, this lets you apply Sever for 9 seconds instead of 8, so it tacks on a little more time. Now, our other perk, which I highly recommend, is Demolitionist. This is where kills with this weapon generate grenade energy, and activating your grenade ability reloads this weapon from reserves. Now, the number on this is 10% grenade ability energy per kill, and 11% with the enhanced version. Personally, I really do like Demolitionist a lot, especially for my Strand Warlocks that are using threading builds. Demo is always a solid one. Now, there's also a new perk that is in that 3rd column called Strategist. This perk states, final blows with this weapon generate improved class ability energy, and activating your class ability briefly improves this weapon's stability. Now, this is essentially the class ability version of Demo or Pugilist, and it gives 10% class ability energy per kill or 11% with the enhanced version. So very similar to Demo. Now, I can see this perk being a good one, especially if you're utilizing it with certain exotics. Maybe you're rocking a Vesper build and you're just trying to put down rifts as often as you can To me though, the cooldown on class abilities really isn't that bad. I think where I would utilize this the most though is with the Titan Exotic Hazardous Propulsion. Now this triggers when you use your class ability, and essentially the amount of excess rockets that hit buffs your rocket launchers, which turns out affects your rocket assisted sidearms. Yes guys, these literally count as a rocket here, and therefore they get buffed by hazardous propulsion. My last recommendation though for column 3 would be subsistence though, where defeating targets partially reloads the magazine from reserves, which is around 10% per kill or 20% with the enhanced version. The main takeaway for this guys is there are a ton of options for the call, and the variety of roles that I have picked up even before getting to the crafted role. I found myself utilizing the call very effectively, no matter the role. That's just how good of a weapon it is. Now on to our 4th column perks. You have a ton of options here as well. First up, let's talk about hatchling. Precision final blows or rapidly defeating targets with this weapon spawns a threadling at the target's location. Now this will be spawning a threadling either every precision kill or every 3 rapid non-precision kill. And the enhanced version simply just grants us +5 handling. Now originally, this was going to be my go-to perk. I mean, look at Undead and Kindness. I love boat shot on that thing. Leaning into arc. I thought the call here was going to serve that same purpose, but for strand. And it seemed like hatchling was the obvious choice. Now this is not me saying hatchling is not a good perk, especially if you're leaning into a full strand build or if you're going full threadling. But many of us are rocking prismatic. We're not leaning into those single subclass builds as heavily. And I also find myself not really going for the precision hits as much with the call and mainly just spam firing it. So threadling creation for me is not as often as I would like, and therefore not as easy to proc as say something like Volt Shot on Indebted Kindness. This is not me saying it's a bad perk guys, it's still a good one, but this did lead me to want to try some other perks, more in the damage department. First we have Vorpal. This increases our damage against bosses, vehicles, and guardians with their super active. Here on special weapons, this is a 15% damage buff. The enhanced version just gives us +5 stability. Now this is not the highest damage dealing perk by any means, but what this offers is a simple and easy way of netting yourself that 15% damage buff when dealing with those high health targets. Now the other damage perk that you should be interested in is a very easy one to proc, and that's One for All. Hitting 3 separate targets increases damage for a moderate duration. Now this is a 35% damage buff for 10 seconds after hitting 3 separate enemies. And the enhanced version cranks this up to 11 seconds duration. The main thing with One for All, especially on this archetype of weapon, is just how easy it is to proc. Now we have other damage perks. You've got Desperate Measures here, which is like a 10% damage buff at 1 stack on weapon kills, and a 20% damage buff on 2 stacks from grenade or melee kills, and then 30% damage buff at 3 stacks from another grenade or melee kill. And the thing that's the big selling point for Desperate Measures is that that buff, which lasts for 7 seconds, can be refreshed simply by getting weapon kills, with the enhanced version increasing that buff duration to 8 seconds. It's a solid perk, but it does require a bit more hoops to jump through, whereas One for All is just bam, 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 35%, you're cooking. The last perk I do want to look at though is Golden Tricorn. This is the older brother of Desperate Measures. This is going to give us a 15% damage bonus on weapon kills for ×1, and then a pretty massive 50% increase in damage by getting a matching grenade or powered melee kill. In the enhanced version of this, the ×1 buff duration will be refreshed to 8 seconds from weapon kills while the buff is active. Unfortunately, Golden Tricorn is bugged on Prismatic, specifically the ×2 portion, which would give us that 50% damage buff. For whatever reason, a strand melee or a grenade kill won't proc ×2, but it works perfectly fine on a normal strand subclass. Not really sure what's going on here, guys, but if you've been using Golden Tricorn, make sure you're looking at that bottom left. It's a good chance on Prismatic that it is not procking. Now, as for the origin trait that's found on all of these Pale Heart weapons, this perk is called Dealer's Choice. Final blows with this weapon grant a small amount of super energy. Equipping multiple weapons from the Pale Heart increases this effect. Now, this is a very solid origin trait, giving us essentially free super energy per kill. And we did our own testing for this, and what we came to is that for 1 weapon, we found this gives around 1% super energy per kill. 2 weapons is around 2.5 to 3% per kill, and 3 weapons is somewhere around 4.5 to 5% per kill, which allows us to get our super back insanely fast. I know most people are not going to run 3 legendary weapons, but we've got some good artifact mods that amp up these Pale Heart weapons, and this is something that the call also can take advantage of. And I would highly recommend taking advantage of Winning Hand, which allows your weapons with Dealer's Choice to cause cause targets to explode when landing either precision final blows or rapidly defeating combatants. And yes, this effect is amplified even more when several weapons with dealer's choice are equipped. It's not like an overwhelming explosion by any means, but it's something. And the call is already really good. So this is literally just a cherry on top. Now that we've gone over everything though, what is the god roll? For column 3, guys, I think lead from gold is still the way to go. Slice and demo is also great options. For my 4th column perks though, I just find myself leaning to one for all. And I know that's crazy because hatchling is here, but 9 times out of 10, I'm rocking prismatic. And I'm not saying you can't use hatchling. The only way I would really go hatchling is if I was doubling up on strand, I was rocking rebirth, and I was trying to create a heavy threadling build. That's where I could see myself still utilizing hatchling. But in terms of just sheer damage, we're talking about an archetype that already does very solid damage to begin with. One for all is an easy perk to proc. You throw on hazardous propulsion for Titan exotics. Now you've got double stacking damage buffs. So those are the perk combinations that I'm leaning toward. Now, before we end this video, I do want to go over those artifact mods in a little more detail here when it comes to the call. First column, we have Unstoppable Sidearm, which is what you should always be selecting to overcharge the call here. This means that the call, flat-footed, and activities that it's overcharged will be dealing 25% more damage. Now let's talk about Winning Hand in a little more detail. Again, while using weapons with dealer's choice, that origin trait, combatant precision final blows or rapidly defeating combatants will cause the target to explode, dealing solar damage to nearby combatants. Having several equipped weapons with the dealer's choice origin trait increases the effect of the explosion. Now I want to mention that the first level of this is like mini Firefly. It's not as strong and you don't get the increase to reload speed. The damage is also pretty weak at 6,250 damage to this dog right here. Now with 3 weapons equipped, our explosion size seems to be about the same, maybe a tad bit bigger, but the damage goes up substantially. We're talking 14,407 damage here to Coral. Now, other artifact mods that we have include Elemental Siphon. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super creates an elemental pickup that matches your equipped super. Now, this allows the call here to generate a tangle for us about every 3 kills. Now, of course, there is a tangle cooldown to deal with afterwards. That's still really nice, especially on prismatic. Now, this directly feeds into Threaded Blast, where destroying a tangle with a strand weapon creates a larger and more damaging explosion. Now, I really like this artifact mod. We actually had this or something similar to it last year during Lightfall. Tangles already have a pretty solid explosive radius, but this cranks it up even more. Shooting a tangle gives off a huge explosion. It's going to be hitting and killing targets, and of course synergizing with more specific strand builds if you're rocking those. This is definitely a sleeper pick among our current artifact mods. So guys, that is the call. It is the #1 weapon right now, and for good reason. It's phenomenal. I literally cannot stop using it, and I need to. There's too many other good weapons right now, but so far, these rocket-assisted sidearms have been some of the best weapons Bungie has ever given us. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.